first story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my dad his decision to move on fast is the reason we feel the way we do? Hi guys! Me, 15 female, and my brother, 17 male, lost our mom 8 years ago. Our dad remarried 6 months after her death. We both found it really hard to come to terms with, and I'll admit we have been very cold and sometimes mean because of it. Our dad just moved on, and he expected us to move on after 6 months. It's been a pretty crappy few years for us. And earlier this year, our dad decided we all needed family therapy, and so we ended up there. And my brother doesn't want to talk. He sits and says nothing the whole time. But the therapist a few weeks ago, back in early October, asked me if I was willing to talk, and so I did. I said my brother and I were angry our dad remarried after 6 months. That he and his wife thought 6 months was enough for us to come to terms with our mom's loss, and be ready for someone new living with us and trying to parent us. I said the fact they never saw anything wrong with it made us dislike them both, and that the reason neither of us bonded with the new members of our family was we were still really angry and hurt about it, and no matter how long has since passed, it doesn't erase what happened. I also said it was insulting to us that they thought she would be our new mom, and that we would love her the same, especially after the way they made everything happen when they moved so fast. My dad asked if I loved my stepmom now, and I said no. My brother didn't answer the question. He then asked why we were still holding on to it after so long. I told him because he might have needed to move fast for him, but he did so at our expense, and that was not something we could just forget about or get over like it didn't matter. Things have been tensed since. My brother is grounded for not opening up, and I was grounded for being rude. The therapist knows all this and has asked if we wanted to do individual sessions, but our dad's wife said no. Then my dad said we're doing it as a family so we can be a family. Am I the a-hole? Just adding some notes here because some things were asked multiple times. My mom's death was sudden, car accident. I am pretty sure there was no affair, but I can't say for sure. We believe they met at work after my mom died. My dad went back a week after she died, and a couple of days after that, he mentioned a new co-worker. We found them in bed together a month after my mom died. We think it was a one-night stand. That then became more because a month later, she was introduced to us as his girlfriend, and she was unemployed, and they mentioned just before that the new co-worker left. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. This is made especially clear by the fact that you got grounded for what you said in therapy. Yeah, why on earth would a brother ever open up if he knows he can get in trouble for expressing himself? This is extremely damaging. Worst Dad of the Year award for real. Well, the brother didn't open up and still got grounded. So the only option is to lie, I guess? What a terrible father. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole, but wow, your dad is. 6 months is crazy fast, and therapy should be a safe space. The fact that you're grounded for being rude and your brother's grounded for not opening up speaks volumes. I'm sorry you're going through this. So Opie gets in trouble for talking about her feelings, and her brother gets in trouble for not talking about his feelings. It's like no matter what, these kids lose. Not the a-hole, but the dad sure is. Not the a-hole. Your father was and is very selfish. He may have been ready to move on after 6 months, less given that he presumably dated this woman before marrying her, but he had no possible right to demand that you and your brother process your grief at his convenience. Now he's punishing you because you're not playing into his happy family fantasy. It wouldn't be surprising if he is one of those who piously tells himself that he remarried for the kids, not for self-gratification, and resents that you and your brother aren't playing along. Your stepmother is a fool if she thinks that love can be commanded, and nothing in your post suggests that she is worthy of your love. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for blaming my dad for bringing my stepbrother into my life? My wife had an affair with him. My wife had an affair with my stepbrother. It was possibly the single most devastating thing I've been through. My marriage is over and everything is wrapped up money-wise. But I have a lot of anger and resentment at my dad for even bringing the piece of crap that is my stepbrother into my life. He was always a negative presence in our family, and I've complained to my dad numerous times as how our stepbrother was awful to my sister and myself. But my dad turned a blind eye because he was desperate to keep the sham of a family together. My dad has begged for forgiveness, but I no longer talk to him. My sister doesn't talk to him as well as an act of solidarity. I also told my granddad that I can no longer work in his company if my dad and stepbrother work there. I told him I was quitting. My granddad ended up firing my dad and stepbrother instead, and he is cutting my dad out of his will because he saw how hurt I was by everything. He doesn't want my stepbrother to benefit from him in any way. My dad reached out recently to say he is separating from his wife, so there will be zero link to my stepbrother, and if I would be open to talking to him. I said he was 15 years too late and stopped responding. Am I the a-hole for blaming my dad for playing a part in this? You're the a-hole. This has nothing to do with your dad bringing him into your life. This has to do with your ex-wife's commitment issues. Your stepbrother and ex-wife are the a-hole. The fact it took granddad cutting the dad out of his will just goes to show he never cared about his kids. He was with stepmother for all this time, but as soon as he's about to lose money, he breaks it off? Please, that man is as selfish as they get. Not the a-hole. Your granddad is a legend. Make sure you buy him a gift and spend some quality time with the man. Seriously, nice that you have someone like him in your life. This right here. You've got family that really cares about you and isn't afraid to stand by you. Spend your time fostering those relationships. They're the ones that will matter in the long run. You're the a-hole. Your wife, an autonomous adult, cheated on you with your stepbrother, another autonomous adult. Your father did not facilitate this simply by your stepbrother being around because of him. If he works with you for your grandfather, that is situational. Your father did not sweep your stepbrother into your life to steal your wife. You are being needlessly cruel to your parent because your unrelated brother screwed your wife. You are being cruel to your own parent because your wife screwed your stepbrother. You are not being cruel to your dad because your dad did something wrong. You literally turned his own parent against him to fuel your petty rage. You are so far from not being the a-hole that I'm surprised you aren't being studied by proctologists for being made entirely out of an a-hole. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for saying that my daughter inherits my house no matter what? I'm a single mom in my 50s with one daughter. I got very lucky in that I bought a home in the Bay Area nearly 30 years ago for around $230,000 before the tech boom, and now the house is worth about $1 million. I have a 23-year-old daughter, Camilla, who grew up in that house, and she moved out last year to go live with her boyfriend. I've never explicitly told my daughter the house will be yours, nor has she asked anything about it. But just sort of common sense. That's my daughter. Who else would I give it to? One important note. There are two homes in the neighborhood that are owned by lower middle-class people. Me and the neighbor who's been here as long as I have. Otherwise, our neighbors are engineers and software developers. The Bay Area is simply unaffordable if you're not in tech. My daughter is a hairstylist. My fiancé Steven and I have been together for 2 years. He has 2 young children, elementary school. He has joint custody of who I adore, and I'm excited to help raise them. Steven and I don't have a ton in the bank, so a prenup seemed silly if it weren't for the house. I told him that I'm ready to combine finances and plan long-term with him, but I wanted a prenup agreement just for the house. It's a non-negotiable for me that my daughter inherits the house. He wasn't happy with this. He said that $1 million split 3 ways is enough for all 3 kids to get a head start in life. I disagree. I paid 80% of the mortgage myself and Camilla is my only child. She can have her dream life, working as a hairstylist, living in the Bay Area, with this house but will be unhappy, have to move out to a less desirable area if it's split. I spoke to Camilla about this and she agrees that she should get the house and said she always planned on inheriting it, just like I always planned on giving it to her. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. You have been with this man 2 years and he is demanding that his kids receive an equal share of the home you paid for and raised your daughter in decades before he even existed for you? That's absurd. If you're going to marry this man and merge finances with him, you need to speak to an attorney first and make sure your wishes for your home will be followed in the event that anything should happen. But first, you should ask yourself, if you have to go to great lengths to protect your child from his greed and entitlement, if marriage and merging finances is something you really want to do with this person. You have been with this man 2 years and he is demanding that his kids receive an equal share of the home you paid for and raised your daughter in decades before he even existed for you? Not even an equal share. He wants the majority of the OP's primary asset, 66%, to go to his children, while the OP's child gets 1/3, despite the OP being the one who bought the house. He also didn't respect the OP, saying this is non-negotiable. OP, this is deal-breaker territory. If your fiancé won't sign the prenup, downgrade him to a friends with benefits. He's not respecting your asset and your agency. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. The house was purchased 30 years ago, long before you met Steven, and it is your separate property. I would not add him to your house deed. I'm not a lawyer, but I certainly would consult an attorney versed in estate law. I have my eyebrows raised that a fiancé of 2 years thinks his 2 children should get an equal share of your house that is your separate property, and that you have paid a mortgage on for nearly 30 years. Please protect yourself and contact an attorney. The entitlement, especially because the kids have a mother and a father that's not the OP. I have lived in Bay Area. 1/3 of that house will not go far for giving Camilla the future you and she want her to have. You are passing your good fortune and hard work on to your daughter. Makes perfect sense to me. Between Steven and his ex, they have the right and responsibility to provide for their 2 children as best they can. I agree. $300,000 is just a down payment. How in the world can she, or anyone, afford a $3,000 a month mortgage payment that would come with a new house? Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not punishing my stepson for what he said to my daughter? I, 45 male, and my ex split 8 years ago. I met my current wife during our divorce and married her pretty quickly after it was finalized. I now live with my wife, 41 female, and stepson, 16 male, and while my ex offered 50-50 custody of our daughter, 15 female, I felt it better if she can stay with her mother so I could adjust to life with my new wife and stepson. So, she came every other weekend before the pandemic. She's been with her mom since March. Here's where the issue comes in. My stepson feels threatened by my daughter when she's here. I'm the only father figure he's ever had and he doesn't like sharing my attention, so he's often quite rude/mean to her. We normally just assure her it's because he's insecure. My stepson came home yesterday cheerfully saying that my daughter said she'd never come here again. I called my daughter to ask why she'd say that. According to her, my stepson has been saying since school resumed that I picked him over her and that I hated her coming to visit and how everyone was so happy these months she didn't visit. No one wanted her there and she needed to just stay away from us. He denied it, of course, but my daughter's friend filmed him at some point, gotta love the age of smartphones, and sent it to me. When confronted, he got watery-eyed and said he was just afraid of losing me. I told my daughter that I obviously didn't feel that way, and he just felt threatened by her presence. She asked if I was going to actually do something about his behavior this time, or if I was just going to brush it under the rug like I always did. I told her I didn't brush anything under the rug, but I wasn't going to punish him for being insecure about losing his father figure. She told me she was tired of his daddy issues being an excuse to treat her like crap, and since I wouldn't stand up for her, she wouldn't be visiting again. I tried to talk to my ex about it, but she said I picked him over her repeatedly, and never stood up for her when he treated her poorly. So I don't get to play the victim now that she's fed up with it. I think they're both being oversensitive here, and my daughter needs to get over it and visit again. But my brother said I let my stepson boost my ego, and failed my daughter by not standing up for her. My nephew suggested a post here. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. You're the a-hole. You did pick your new family over her, and then repeatedly leave her needs and emotions out of the equation. Him turning down 50-50 custody to weekend visits so he could adjust to life with his new wife and stepson really said it all. Yep, you're the a-hole. How do you not see this? Do you prefer stepson because he's a boy? It sounds like you are picking him first again and again. You even rejected 50% custody of your own kid. How is this a mystery to you? Opie likes feeling like a hero for playing such a large role in stepson's life. Daughter is considered old news. You're the a-hole.